I'm really quite excited by many of the reforms that the government is proposing and indeed implementing around apprenticeships. I think the apprenticeship levy, I think, is a good thing. Certainly the companies that I have spoken to have generally been encouraged by the power of the levy and what they have to pay to seriously look at introducing an apprenticeship program within their business. And I think that's good news. And certainly a lot of them are looking at how they can change their in-house learning and development programs, turn those into apprenticeships. So I have no doubt that there will be far more opportunities, particularly for young people, on the apprenticeship stage. I think as well to clarify some of the funding rules, particularly for smaller businesses, around the co-investment piece, so that the government is paying 90% and small businesses have to pay a maximum of 10%, I think again is really good. In what other sphere of training or what other sphere of business do you get 90% of your costs paid for you? And I think that's the way we need to look at it, in a very sort of positive way. So again, I think that's really good. The third element of the government's reform programme around frameworks, apprenticeship frameworks into standards, again, I'm a great believer in. I personally am involved in a Trailblazer group and have really sort of seen the power of getting a group of employers, both large and small, around the table and getting them really thinking about what's in an apprenticeship, what it should be, what are the knowledge, skills and behaviours that they want to see as businesses. So they're driving this agenda. So again, I think that the whole standards thing, whilst it's had some problems, and I know some of the early Trailblazers were fraught with all sorts of what I think is probably, with hindsight, a bit of unnecessary government interference. I think generally the DFE now understands a little bit more about its role. I think it is a bit clearer, and I think there's some really good opportunities for new standards out there. But it's not all rosy in the apprenticeship reform garden, I don't think. And there are certain things that concern me. I think the principle of endpoint assessment, I think, is a huge worry. I think it's a bit of a mess at the moment. There are still some standards without an endpoint assessment organisation, and probably just as bad in my mind, there's a whole load with just one endpoint assessment organisation. So where's the employer choice in that particular agenda? And I know, again, there are some employers who are really concerned about that. And I think, frankly, the government needs to step up to the plate a bit quicker and to really sort that situation out, because I think there is some complacency. I think there are people in government saying, oh yeah, but we've some time to go before apprentice is complete and all the rest of it. But actually, do you know what? We haven't got that far to go, and I think that it's a real issue that needs sorting out. Apprenticeships are only any good if you've got a huge cohort of young people, particularly who want to take them on and who want to do them. And one of the real worries that I have got is around the role of schools in promoting apprenticeships, and is schools in particular, I think. I was recently at a very large national employer, and I spoke to 8 of their apprentices, and I asked all 8 of them whether they heard about their apprenticeship programme. Every single one of them said, we did not hear about it at school. We heard about it on the internet because my uncle works here, by chance, in effect. And this really raised for me the issue of how is the government, on the one hand, so serious about apprenticeships, and yet on the other hand, so reluctant to encourage schools to really promote apprenticeship programs. I know our head teachers don't want to do it. You don't want to lose those pupils. Each pupil has several £1,000s stamped on their forehead, and you don't want to lose that. But that is looking at it from a financial viewpoint. That's looking at it from running a business. Schools are in the business of education. They're not in the business of making money. And I think sometimes some head teachers forget that. Schools should absolutely be in the place where they are giving independent careers advice to all of their pupils. I personally would make it mandatory. I would reinstate the idea of independent careers companies whose job it is to go in, they have a right to go into schools and talk to schools about all aspects. That's going to be really important when we understand a bit more about the government's new T levels for technical education, and we don't know enough about that yet. But again, there's going to be the need for some really clear careers advice if we're expecting young people to begin to choose one of 15 sectoral directions at quite an early age. So how are they going to be informed about that? Where is the information going to come from to get a young person to really make the right informed choices? So I think there's a huge issue. The other thing as well that I think I'd just like to say is around, I do get a bit fed up every time I hear somebody from government talk about FE, and by that they mean colleges. Let's be very clear, colleges only deliver something like 1 out of 5 apprenticeships. Private training providers deliver 80% of apprenticeships in this country. And they play an absolutely crucial role. The government's 3 million target is dead in the water if it loses sight of the fact that it has private training providers who are out there delivering it. Now, there are some fantastic colleges out there doing apprenticeships, there really are, like there are some fantastic training providers, private training providers. There are some dreadful colleges, there are some dreadful private training providers. My point is that government must not forget the role that the private sector plays in delivering its target.